Hello everybody, this is General Yanis, and today in Death Guard Tactics I'm continuing to review my first ever tournament where I got the third place with the Death Guard. This is part 2, the final part. The games 1 to 3, the background, etc. are in part 1, but this, as I said, is the second part where I faced Imperial Knights and Adeptus Mechanicus from some very interesting games. So with no further ado, let's get started. So today is the 28th of October, and it's the Greek National Day. The 28th of October, we are celebrating the Second World War, where Italy had an ultimatum for Greece that Greece ultimately said no to, and a war started where the Greek forces defended the northern part, the mountainous part of the country, against the Italian invasion and overthrow the invaders back into Albania where they started until Germany intervened and basically occupied Greece. And I was telling my kids some stories this morning, and it was a very heroic moment for the Greek Air Force. They were heavily outnumbered against the Italian Air Force, and with older fighter planes like this biplane, Polish design biplane. One of the Greek guys they attacked a bomber squad of 27 bombers, and the fighter he shot down one of the bombers, and then his ammunition ran out, so he rammed the Italian bomber with his propeller, cutting off the tail, and then the bomber crashed, and and to top it off, this heroic action, the guy had to make an emergency landing, the pilot, and then he stepped out, and with his pistol and with the help of some locals, he captured the crew of the Italian bomber as well. So that's quite a moment in history. This is just an artistic view. There were not pictures at the time. So Greek National Day aside, I'll continue my first tournament experience, and this is the second part, starting with talking about the games 4 and 5, the last two games of the tournament, and the strategy I had thought before the tournament, and then how the games actually played out, and then summarizing all the learnings and experience from this very interesting tournament. Before I start, as always, a very big thanks and shout out to my patrons. All you guys, I really appreciate your support, and also happy to welcome one of my first patrons that is playing Thousand Suns and not Death Guard, primarily like the rest of my patrons. So a very big thanks to all of you guys. Thanks for your support. As always, let me know if any special video is needed, and let's have a discussion on the Patreon page. So with no further ado, let's get started with the tournament description. So I will not go through my list. This was the list I went through the tournament. I described the list in detail in part 1 of the tournament review, where I'll put a link here. Basically, it's Mortarion, and then an inexorable battalion with Contemptors, with Volkites, Plagueverse Crawlers, 3 units of Poxwalkers, and Death Shroud, and some supportive characters to buff the Contemptors. So again, if you want to see the detailed description, please see part 1. I'll put a link here. So we knew beforehand in the tournament which maps would be used for games 1 through 5, and for the games 4 and 5, we would be playing battle lines. That would be game 4, and then sweep and clear the final, the fifth game from the Grand Tournament 2021. In the first day, the first 3 battles, all the maps had 6 objectives, which was good for spread the sickness, but now the battle lines only has 4 objectives like this, and the sweep and clear has 5 objectives, the central one becoming very important in this game for the mission secondary. So 4 objectives and 5 objectives here, not super optimal for spread the sickness. Not so easy to spread the sickness on objectives that are quite far away, and not so many points, but at least the mission secondaries, the mission secondary objectives are good. Here in Vital Ground, they synergize very well with primaries. You just need to hold some of these objectives here. They would be giving you 2 additional points for these 2, and if you can hold your opponents, that would be 3 points. So basically another secondary where you will anyway try to hold the primary, so it's just basically giving you extra points here, so really good. And then the sweep and clear also has a very good secondary objective. You score 3 points if you control the center objective marker at the end of your turn, which is quite, yeah, I mean, at the end of your turn, you can come and contest this one, maybe take it. If you hold the opponents, which is quite difficult, depending on your opponent, you would be getting 5 points. 5 yeah, if you hold one, it's 3. If you hold both of them, it's 5. But again, you're trying to take the center. And therefore these mission secondaries for these maps are really strong, and I didn't have to take, let's say, spread the sickness. So my secondary ideas for battle lines, as always, as I discussed in my previous video, I will, with this list I would be always taking to the last. Then Mortarion and Plaguebearer Scroller should survive, and I always took that, and it doesn't need very much planning. You just have to, yeah, you get points for existing. Basically, you don't need to plan ahead and do actions and stuff like that. For these 2, I was considering to take the mission secondaries. As I said, they synergize well with the primary, and in this, especially this with the five objectives, the stranglehold is a really good match. At least that's what I thought. And basically, if you can hold the triangle here, 3, or a triangle down here, for example, if you can hold that at the end of your turn, you would be getting 3 points. So I saw the Warhammer Grand Tournament. I saw the final played in this map, and all these very experienced players, they were fighting back and forth to control the center, to scroll the stranglehold and the mission secondary, which still gets you in the center. At least this was my ideas, since spread the sickness is not optimal on these maps. So in game 4, I faced Imperial Knights. The Imperial Knights at that point had been undefeated with this very strong and a nice looking list. I've seen in hindsight, this was by far the best and most interesting game I had in this tournament. And also it was really helped because the map had a lot of line of sight blocking and obscuring terrain, so we could even hide, my opponent could hide his Imperial Knights and I could hide Mortarion. We could place our vehicles somehow, so nothing could be just alpha destroyed very easily on the first turn. Interesting enough, both our lists had indirect shooting. So here we had the Manticore and the Wyvern, so interesting. And I had, of course, my mortars from my Plaguebearer Scroller, so it would be a lot of cat and mouse game, and trying to get some lines of sight, being able to hide, come out, shoot, etc., and some protection and something. Still not super much protection from the infantry, as I said, because there was a lot of things that could shoot, let's say, with no line of sight. So as I said, in this one, I stuck to my strategy. I took to the last the vital ground, which is the mission secondary, and then I took bring it down. Depending on the opponent, had a lot of vehicles with the big titans, the big knights, give you 3 victory points each. Everything else was giving 2, so it was possible to max it out if I was able to destroy all these vehicles. My opponent took retrieve Octarius data, engage on all fronts, and assassination. And the Imperial Knights army, they had one of the knights, the blue one was a crusader, I think, and they had a lot of shooting weapons. And the Knight Warden is a strong in melee and had some lighter shooting, but he had the flat 6 damage melee weapon that I didn't want to strike Mortarion. So I was trying to see how can I play so that all his units cannot shoot at Mortarion at the same time. That was at least my idea when I was setting up, and I also wanted to have Mortarion a bit hidden, but then I had also to start him quite far back instead of in the front lines to come quickly up. On top of that, he has the armigers, as I said, the Manticore and the Wyvern from an Imperial Astra Militarum detachment. Then it was 2 units with 10 guards, 1 times 5 scions, and then some supportive character. And then one unit I haven't faced yet, the Colexus Assassin. Really interesting, and I'll tell you what happened with his very interesting character. So we set up and the game started. I chose to have my Death Shroud in Deep Strike, and the game commenced here. So as I said, we did some careful deployment from both sides, hiding our assets as much as possible. Imperial Knights got their first turn, and then it basically ensued like a cat and mouse shooting between the Knights and the Armigers on one side, and the Plague Scrollers and the Contemptors on my side. It was strong also that the opponent could use Vengeance for Cadia, allowing him to reroll all to hit and all to wound, shooting not line of sight, and these missiles allows it to shoot 2d6 or 3d6 shots in 4 turns, let's say, and then he's running out of missiles. But he took out one of my Contemptors in first turn, Plague Scroller was injured, etc. And the Wyvern that has 4d6 typical bolter shots is very efficient against the Poxwalkers. It was difficult to hide all the units, but with no line of sight required, they could also take out a lot of my Poxwalkers that I couldn't hide, and the spawn, as always, died in the first turn. On my part, I was shooting at the Armigers I could see with the heavy weapons. I focused my mortar fire on the guards, trying to deny my opponent objective secured units to keep the ground, to get the engage, and to do the Octarius data. I was able to take my toll on the guards, and of course I started also to take my tolls on the Armigers, but the Knights was really difficult to do anything against the Knights from long distance. With the game, it took me eventually long time for Mortarion to get up the field. First turn, I just could fly here, and then second turn, I moved on to the objective and charged the guard that were keeping it. I managed to kill them, of course, and then I could fly. Starting at my third turn, I managed to come and charge and destroy the Wyvern. The next turn, he destroyed the Manticore, and then the melee-oriented Knight charged on him. He failed to do so much because with Miasma of Pestilence and the Gloaming Blood not allowing the Knights to reroll, they couldn't. Basically, they just bracketed Mortarion with I think it was like 10-9. I think he had 9 wounds left, and then when Mortarion stroked back on the fourth turn, he just killed the Knight outright. 6 hits, rerolling everything, 6 wounds, rerolling the ones to wound, basically hitting on 2s, rerolling, wounding on 2s, rerolling 6 successful wounded rolls, no saves for the Knights. That's already minimum 24 wounds, taking the Knight out. And in the last turn, Mortarion charged the last Knight, also taking it out with the same result. Basically, only I think was one supportive character left. So the Miasma Pestilence, I managed to take it out all the time, and it kept him protected from the shooting. And my opponent focused his shooting on my other vehicles primarily. The Death Shroud came to contest the objectives, killed some of the remaining guards, and also deployed in the back of the opponent's deployment zone to try to make the charge on the vehicles, but they failed to do their charge there. And then in turn 1 or 2, it became a bit critical for me because my opponent used the Colexus Assassin very, very efficiently. So the guards move up here, and I had moved my Plague Marines and my Plaguecaster in this building, wanting to take the objective, but then they were charged by the Colexus Assassin. And the Colexus Assassin is very strong against my list here because, first of all, he's immune to psychic abilities, so I couldn't just smite him and Curse of the Leper would have killed him. And he's very difficult to hit because every attack against him is counting as your weapon skill or ballistic skill is 6s to hit, and then he has a 4+ invul. So I attacked with all my Plague Marines, I attacked with my Plague Caster, I couldn't do anything hitting on 6s, maybe I scored 1-2 hits and he's just saved. So this was really a trouble situation. The problem also that he's giving a -2 aura, so the Psykers close to him are -1 to cast, and I had Mortarion here needing to cast Miasma of Pestilence, and I was even a bit in a, yeah, I didn't want all this flank to be locked forever here. So I was thinking, can I just fall back? Can I shoot him with something? What should I do? And then I remember, thankfully, I remember the Plague Marines, the grenade stratagem. So 3d6, 18 shots because they were engagement range, auto hit, so I didn't have to hit on 6s, and just basically killed him with the blight grenades. I can imagine the Plague Marines smiling on the corner of their distorted faces, the bloated faces, just dropping the grenades in the feet of the Colexus assassin. But really a strong play, and if I didn't remember the grenade strat, I would have been in serious problem on this flank because I would have trouble getting the objective and etc. All in all, I managed to. It was a very big fight on both sides. I lost most of my army. My opponent did as well, lose basically everything. But at last, in the after turn 3, I could start scoring the primary objectives. I could start scoring the vital ground, and I maxed the Bring It Down. One Plague Scroller was destroyed, and it gave me 82 points. And my opponent got 46 points. I could quite efficiently, when I took out his Imperial Guard, he couldn't score so much on his secondaries. My Playcaster also did a good job. The teleported Scions, he could kill them with Curse of the Leper. He could also take the primary objectives here in the middle, and everything I was putting here was killed. But at least I could score some points to the end of the game. So really a strong game, really interesting, and really nice to see the Primarch. He took out so many assets, so many points in this game. So with this win, it was setting me up to play the 5th game versus Adeptus Mechanicus, which was basically undefeated, 4 wins at that time, and he ended up winning the whole tournament. He had a very strong list, and he had won against the Grey Knights, everything he faced. He had scored 90, 100 points in all his 4 games so far. He basically, if he got first turn with Grey Knights, he was just obliterating them. So and the game, the map wasn't didn't have so much terrain. We decided that every small ruin also was obscuring terrain, but it was such a strong army that I quickly realized I would never be able to take this army out with his army here. So his army highlights, he had 6, or he didn't have any flyers, but he was a very strong list anyway. He had 6 Iron Striders, the last chickens. So those are very efficient at shooting at Mortarion and all my vehicles with longer range than my vehicles, so not very good. He had infiltrator squads for forward deployment, so he would be able, let's say, to come to any objective he wanted basically from the beginning. He had Rust Stalkers as a good melee options and fast. He had a lot of Skitarii Rangers, which can have a tremendous damage output, and these Skitarii Rangers also being Lucius, Forge World, they are also very well protected. They can get only wounded on 4, saving, ignoring AP, etc., etc. So taking out this let's say small infantry that doesn't cost a lot, taking them out is very tough against Adeptus Mechanicus. And then he had these Cerberus, the very cool looking units that he can do pre-moves. I was watching on the finals of the Warhammer Grand Tournament. These type of units, they could occupy the middle, and then when the opponent charges them to try to take them out in melee, they could just fall back, and then the charge fails, and basically you cannot take the middle. So as I said, I knew I wouldn't be able to win this one. I couldn't take domination here. My opponent would be, let's say, after first turn he probably would have all the 4 objectives. So I changed my plans. Instead of trying to win, I just tried to see how can I score the most points. So I took to the last, as I normally took. I took the mission specific secondary. If I can come to the center by the end of my turn, I could get 3 points. And then I took engage on all fronts, trying with this map, even with boxwalkers, you can quickly go and be on several quarters to score a little bit at least. So thankfully, I won the most important role for this game, and I got the first turn. If my opponent had gone first, maybe I would have been really have achieved a far less good result than I did. So thanks to Nurgle, I got the first turn. So my starting from my deployment, and we said this was line of sight blocking. I moved out aggressively in turn 1 to try to score as many points as possible. So I moved Mortarion in the middle, the Poxwalkers and Chaos Spawn went into this building with a Plaguecaster, Plague Marines here. The Plague Scroller moved out to come to the quarters. These Poxwalkers advanced to come close to this quarter, and the Plague Scroller I had to move to see something also with the entropy cannons. And this Plague Scroller could see the Iron Striders in this side. In the psychic phase, here the pre-move of the Admech was to move the Cerberus Knights here, and I did a silly mistake in the psychic phase that cost me Mortarion very easily. I cast Curse of the Leopard to kill this not super important let's say Cerberus, as I already was on the objective, and Mortarion would have charged them easily and killed them, and if they fled, they wouldn't be on the objective. So I felt the Curse of the Leper, and I chose to reroll it with 1 command point. And then when my Mortarion wanted to cast Miasma Pestilence, I failed that roll, and I couldn't command point reroll it, and then basically Mortarion was defenseless for all the ensuing shooting in the Admech's first turn. Other than that, this big mistake, and I shouldn't have done that, I had a great turn. Otherwise, this Plague Scroller managed to kill 2 out of the 6 Iron Striders, so really important. And the combined shooting of the Contemptors and with some help from the Plague Scroller, I could take a whole 20-man unit of Rangers. I cleared the middle from the Cerberus. Mortarion, he claimed 3 victory points, and I got also engaged on all fronts in the start of my turn. But then from there, the game became very difficult. The Admech started. They could use their canticles. They could use their improvements. They teleported one of the Rangers to this objective, and basically the 4 Iron Striders with some good rolling, and I failed my rolls, and I didn't have miasma. And together with shots from the Skitari Rangers, 60 shots with a strat, auto wounding on 5 pluses, scored so many hits that basically Mortarion died. If I had Miasma Pestilence, it would have taken at least one more unit of the Rangers to shoot there. Instead, they could kill my Poxwalkers and my Chaos Spawn. So that left me also a bit less contestable. They also charged. They have so fast units that they could charge my Plague Marines. They could charge my Plague Scroller. They charged here and they locked my Plague Scroller. That was also a stupid mistake. From my side, I put the Poxwalkers too close to the Plague Scroller, and basically from there on it was damage control. The Death Shroud arrived. I put some here and I put here to try to contest some objectives. The Death Shroud and the Plaguecaster moved to take the middle and managed to secure the middle, knowing that he would die the next turn. The Plague Skull of Glothila from the Chaos Lord, he could move up and clear this Plague Scroller from the infantry, so this Plague Scroller could shoot. But from that point on, the game was my second turn shooting was not as effective as the first one, and the board control was clearly in the favor of the Mechanicus. It seems to me that they don't have very weak points. They are fast, they are shooty, they can do a lot in melee, they have repri moves, they can be buffed defensively, they can be buffed offensively, so it didn't feel that I had a big chance. So the game ended, I was able to contest the middle and take points from the direct assault, the mission specific secondary, and I could keep my primary locked down for the whole game. So at least I was able to score 51 points. My opponent, he won clearly and scored 95 points. Engaging on fronts, I only got a little bit in the beginning, and I lost one flavor scroller, and then in the end I was just moving. We talked it through. I could move and hide my flavor scroller, just hunkering down in this corner and getting some points here. So this was the final result, the 5th game completed. So I managed then to have 3 wins and 2 losses. I got some good overall point score. There was some other list also with 3 wins and 2 losses, but I just was a bit distant, third on points, and there was a lot of armies that had very close points. But I managed to hang in there for the 3rd spot, losing basically to the 1st and 2nd place winners. They had better lists, they were better players. I did some mistakes, they didn't, and of course well deserved for these guys to win. The only loss for the Grey Knights I faced in my first game was with the Adeptus Mechanicus player, and it was a high scoring game for both sides anyway. The most exciting game, the most interesting game was the game with game 4 with Imperial Knights, which was the closest fought and most interesting, and it was nice to see that Mortarion took the upper hand there against the Knights. Where I felt I didn't have any chance at all to win was game 5 with Adeptus Mechanicus. I'm happy on that one that I played tactically smarter and scored a bit more points. I did the mistake with my asthma, but I don't think anything I would have done would have made me win that game. The game 1, the heaviest loss I faced versus Grey Knights and a very strong player. I could have done a bit better without the mistake of shooting the Grandmaster with a pistol, but again, I wouldn't be able to win with this strong opponent. Experienced player does a lot. I could have scored a little bit more points, but again, well deserved. These players were out of my league, to be honest. All in all, a very great experience, and it's very nice to have played a lot of games and meet all the good people, and really happy that I managed to claim the 3rd spot, showing that Death Guard can still do a little bit on the tabletop. So key learning for the list and scoring for the units, let's say Mortarion. I think Mortarion did really well for most of the matchups. He did what he wanted what I wanted him to do. He was a big distraction in the game 4 with Imperial Knights. He basically won me the game. In some of the others, he was just the cherry on the cake. And with against the Grey Knights and Adeptus Mechanicus, they had the tools to take him out. At least they won me the. He took a lot of fire that the other army could survive a turn more and do a little bit. Miasma Pestilence definitely needed, and Gloaming Bloat, a Warlord trait choice for Mortarion is huge. Closing down the enemy rerolls was really strong, and yeah, I can't see the big idea to take something else. The Contemptor Dreads with the Volkites, they were very strong in every game. They had super damage output. The 45-inch range really helps. They can stand back and shoot at Grey Knights, which have maybe a slower range. They didn't have the range for versus the Iron Striders, but they were only taken out versus the Imperial Knight players. Otherwise, they did a ton of damage. Basically, in all games, the mortal wounds really help versus a variety of armies. And I'm thinking next time I will add now. I have the bits to put the missiles on top. If you buff them with Taliman, then you can, for 25 points, you get the missiles. You can add a little bit more chaff infantry shooting. So probably, yeah, those guys did really a lot, and probably is the reason why Death Guard, we can still hang on a little bit with our nails in the competitive settings. The Plaguebearer Scrollers did their part, survived most battles, scoring me to the last, doing the shooting. Yeah, good units. And of course, when the Grey Knights come close to them, they are toast. But otherwise, all in all, Plaguebearer Scrollers have never disappointed me. Their shooting can be bit up and down, but all in all, I think they are doing a good job. I should have been maybe better to screen them and to not avoid being tagged, and I seldom had the chance to use the stratagem to get -2 inches for the charge roll, but yeah. So all in all, Plaguebearer Scrollers also very strong. The Tallyman deserves a very big medal. He buffs the Contemptor so much. The exploding sixes is so great. The extra command points were great. I mean, in all games, I was at some point running out of command points. I was using them as much as possible early also to try to gain some benefits. And the Tallyman giving you extra command points nearly every turn is invaluable. Let's say it's really strong. The Chaos Lord, his reroll helped the Contemptor's damage output. The Plague Skull of Clothilla relic, I think, is good for him in this row. If something comes in, if you can't close in, the Plague Skull gives you a little bit of something to shoot back. The Ferric Miasma Warlord trade was never used. I wanted to spread it to, let's say, get -1 AP advantage for the Volkites that don't have any AP, but you need a stronger, you need some fast forward unit to flush Outbreak it to, and I didn't have it in this list, so probably I should have saved the command point or take some other Warlord trait here. The Plaguecaster did also a good game. Curse of the Leper can really help against, let's say, the Astra Militarum or the Drukhari or something like this. He helped the infantry survive a little bit more with the putrescent vitality. His screen, the Plague Marines, typically I had him follow the Plague Marines most of the time, but eventually, you know, the Plague Marines die. Then he normally would sacrifice himself to do something, but still a good guy. Did a lot. The Poxwalkers, I guess they died a bit too easily. Maybe I didn't use them to their full potential. The terrain was a bit too open for them to survive, and they are a bit slow to contest. They give you the points for spread the sickness. They are good at holding the backfield, but yeah, managed to score me some point. I think I could have played better. Maybe I should have gone with a bigger blob of Poxwalkers instead of 10, having them 20 to make sure that at least something survives so you can bring them back. The Plague Marines, I think, again, didn't utilize them perfectly. Their shooting never came into play. They did something in melee. They killed the assassin. That was really good. They were also a bit slow to contest the middle. The Chaospawn never really utilized his abilities. He died in turn 1 in every single game because I had very difficult with the very open deployment zones and terrain. I had difficult hiding everything, and the Chaospawn was normally open, but otherwise he had the speed that the Poxwalkers and Plague Marines didn't have, so probably I would like to take a bit more of those, hide them better, and use them better. The Death Shroud didn't do very strong showings. I also think I didn't play them very well. I was a bit lured to go in the backfield, try to hope for the best, but they didn't do their big part in. They didn't make any huge charges, and they died from the opponent shooting them. But it's always good to have as a deep striking threat. Kept the opponent a bit, worried where the Terminators would come in, and still also they helped me keep some objectives, score me some points, but I think also I could have played a bit better here, and that's basically the thoughts on my list here. So summary and final thoughts for my first tournament. Very happy with the outcome of this tournament. I achieved the goals I had set for this tournament. I had a lot of fun. I managed to play the 5 games on time, and my head was working after all the games, and I feel the results. I didn't disgrace the Legion, at least. I think I even I hope Mortarion and Nurgle would approve that I kept the banners of Death Guard honest in this setting. My list did as intended. It helped me to have fun. It helped me to manage to play all the 5 games and not be too complicated, and it managed to do a decent showing, getting let's say third place. If I wanted to build a better list, a more competitive list, I probably remove Mortarion and make a different type of list, adding some more speed, adding some blow drones, maybe some blight holders, and maybe a bit more spawn, place them better, replace the plague marines with blight lords, one blob of blight lord terminators for more staying power, some fast attack units, and keep the rest. I think I would keep the rest, maybe 120-man foxwalkers instead of 2 × 10, something like that. But I think that could also be a decent list, or otherwise maybe a completely different Death Guard list with a lot of demon engines. I faced some very strong players in the tournament. To see, it's nice to see the very experienced players and the very strong players, to see how Warhammer 40k can be played very efficiently. That the players that can score 90 and 100 points every time. And I also see that there is a lot to learn and a lot of experience to be gained to become better. It's like chess. I mean, if you're a beginner, you're not winning. Even with a strong list, you will not be winning against an experienced player. On the negative side, I am a bit clueless at the moment on how to face Adeptus Mechanicus. I couldn't find anything to do against them. That was the most difficult matchup. I don't know if they are a hard counter to us, but again, very shooty opponent, very also tough. Is something we are struggling with. I think Death Guard can still compete in the current meta, but it's not a top tier army. We are not dominating as for example Mechanicus can do or Grey Knights can do, but I still think we can hang on in there with our nails. A better player could maybe do more than I could do here, but yeah, at least we have some tools to compete. So all in all, more hooked into Warhammer than before the tournament, so really looking forward to go to a new tournament. And the highlight of the tournament for me was Mortarion taking out the 2 Imperial Knights that I have been that had been chasing me and shooting me during this game. So with these words, this summarizes the video. What do you think about the last 2 games here? My thoughts about the list, the strategies, the outcomes, the result. Please let me know in the comments. If you have any questions of something particular on the games, please let me know. If you like, please press like on the video and subscribe to my channel, where I will bring you many more videos on Warhammer, Death Guard, and Thousand Suns, and other Chaos factions going forward. And as I said in the beginning, very strong big thanks to my patrons for all your support. So with these words, General Yanis is signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye-bye.